my name is Erica Croswhite, and I am going to walk you through this presentation on counseling and values conflicts. The topics of the presentation include a discussion about if counselors can remain neutral, some situations that might involve conflicts of values, as well as some strategies for how to address those, and um, information about Colorado state laws and statutes that govern counseling, ethical practices in counseling, as well as the American Counseling Association's Code of Ethics, and a stance on the necessity and feasibility of counselor neutrality, and a potential value statement, and what that would include. All right, so the question is, can counselors remain neutral in regard to their clients' values? And I believe the answer is yes, and it's a yes and response. Yes, and it requires a commitment to self-reflection and self-awareness. The text shares that values can and they will permeate the counseling relationship. It's just part of it. However, counselors are required to focus on their clients' needs and values and issues through their perspectives, not the counselor's perspective. The clients are not there to discuss the counselor's values. The clients are there to discuss their values. And so counselors must separate their personal values from their professional role because clients come to counseling for help, not to be judged. Counselors also agree to an ethical obligation to remain non judgmental and accepting and willing to work with a diverse client population. And counselors understand the difference between being unable versus unwilling to serve a specific client population. I should say that counselors should understand the difference, meaning if they do not feel like they have the skill set or the education or training to serve a specific population, and that deems them unable, they can seek additional education and training and supervision in order to become more comfortable um, serving all clientele. But there is a nuanced understanding between being unable versus unwilling. You have to be able to walk that line carefully and make sure that you are following the law and the ethical obligations of counseling. So, a few values issues that might come up in counseling. It could be working with someone who has uh, maybe been convicted of child abuse, a person who has is in a domestically violent relationship, um, someone who might have an abortion, someone who might be struggling with infertility, someone who might be struggling with their sexuality. All of these types of situations can present values conflicts for clients and counselors. And the strategies for counselors, there are so many ways that we can work to build a practice of strong ethical bracketing where we really create that division, that separation between our personal values and um, how we show up as a professional counselor. So, by being non judgmental, respecting the rights of clients to hold their own views, honoring client self determination, exploring and reflecting on your personal values to understand how they may impact the therapeutic relationship with clients. And another idea is to identify a values mentor and seek some supervision and support from a coach or someone, a role model, someone that you might admire and look up to. A few other strategies include avoiding value imposition, seeking additional training, of course, um, learning ways to manage your conflicts, these values conflicts, by doing a deeper dive into the impact of the values, maybe in supervision or in your own therapy. Um, and that just contributes to the stronger development of personal and professional awareness. Also, reframing the differences in values from a strength-based perspective. So instead of seeing those values conflicts as challenges or problems, looking at those through the lens of how the differences can actually strengthen the relationship. In the state of Colorado, there are several resources for us to access um, to gain more information and insight and knowledge about the expectations of ethical counseling practices. We have the Division of Professions and Occupations at the Department of Regulatory Agencies. That's called DORA. And in that website, you can review the laws, rules, and the policy sections. You can review the general provisions for the state, as well as provisions applicable to healthcare professions. And the Mental Health Practice Act is available for review. We also have the Licensed Professional Counselor Examiners rules and regulations in the Code of Colorado regulations, and we have the professional counselor policies at the Department of Regulatory Agencies. Always, we have the ACA Code of Ethics, and we can also conduct a literature review to learn about ethical considerations in counseling to further our knowledge. The key points in some of these documents are number one, that we are to adhere to the ACA Code of Ethics. And so we have to avoid imposing values. We cannot engage in discriminatory behaviors. We must remain aware of legal and ethical responsibilities. And in the state of Colorado, it explicitly says that there is an expectation that all mental health providers keep their clients' best interest in mind at all times, including when it comes to values conflicts. Um, some of the guidelines in uh, uh, these policies are, they are long, they are complicated, they are complex, and they offer just a ton of information for guiding practice and for reference. And some of the things that some of the general categories are different types of prohibited behaviors, adhering to the counseling scope of practice, and guidelines related to telehealth and dual relationships, professional education, supervision, discipline, and documentation. And there is so much more information in these documents to guide our practice. So, um, if I were to write a counselor neutrality value statement, these are the things that I would include. Um, a reference to unconditional positive regard as the North Star for maintaining neutrality. That's how we maintain counselor neutrality, is by seeing our clients through that lens of unconditional positive regard. Also remembering that power and privilege are important factors to consider when it comes to values conflicts, and that counseling is focused on the decision-making process for the client versus directing the clients toward outcomes that would align with my values. It's more about empowering clients to make the decisions that are best for them as they choose their path forward, not what I think is best or better or right or wrong, but really empowering clients to determine that for themselves. Non-discrimination policies um, are important to include. And then also just the big buckets of values conflicts, um, issues related to sexuality, abortion, faith and spirituality, and end of life issues. We need to be really mindful and aware of when those values conflicts impact the types of support that we're providing during those types of issues. And then also that the value statements represent the profession of counseling, that we honor the client's best interests, and we uphold the ethical obligations of the ACA Code of Ethics. So that to me would make a comprehensive, holistic, and respectful value statement um, in my counseling practice. Thank you so much. Here are my references.